I'm not sure if March 27th, 1987 was the right time to release Winter Games. The seasons were moving into spring, and the Winter Olympics were almost a full year off. Maybe Summer Games would have been a better choice at this point. Winter Games is a port of Epyx computer game Winter Games, and it is extremely difficult to understate just how big the Epyx Games series was. They've all but vanished from memory for very good reason, but these were everywhere in the 80s. Summer Games was a hit for Epyx in 1984, and they immediately started spawning sequels. All of these games titles got ported to any platform that could possibly run them. They were ubiquitous sports games throughout the 80s. And, just to let you know, they're all not really that good. I'm not going to call Winter Games the low point for the series, but it is definitely down there. One thing that you'll note when starting the game is that it plays a tune that is very obviously derived from John Williams' Olympic fanfare. Epyx did not have permission for that. In the Famicom Disk System version of Winter Games, you can play a series of 4 events. You can play them all as a set, you can compete in them as a nation, or you can practice them. If you choose to compete as a nation, then you'd pick out what nation you're going to be, and enter your name. The only thing that this selection does is change what music plays when you finish. The event selection is odd. The Famicom Disk System version has only half the events of the computer versions, and they chose 2 events that are judgment-based, as in those events where judges hold up scorecards after a performance, and then the other 2 events are time-based. As you might expect, having the computer judge your fancy performances doesn't really work. It makes an already poorly controlling game feel more out of control than ever. The first of these events is what is called freestyle skiing in the Olympics, but here it's called hot dog. You hit the A button to launch yourself into the air, and then you can press in a direction to do a trick. The time you have in the air is pretty short, so you have just enough time to squeeze out 2 tricks if you do it exactly right. You're then given scores out of 10, based on the difficulty of the tricks and how many you performed. Also, if you successfully landed. Speed skating is the obligatory mash the controller as hard as you can to win the race event. This time you're mashing left and right, and you're the character in the bottom screen, not the top. The top screen is just another guy doing their speed skating at the same time. You're not really competing against them. Even if you're somehow amazing at this, you have to do it for almost a minute straight. It is really boring. And then we come to figure skating. A nearly impossible, incredibly unpleasant minigame to play. The gist of it is, during the minute-long event, where you are skating to the skater's waltz, you enter certain button combinations to perform tricks. If you land the trick, then you impress the judges. If you don't land the trick, then you fall down and lose points. Figure skating is judged on a scale of 0 to 6, by the way. Now there are 2 significant problems here. First, the only way you know what inputs you need is to read the manual. Second, you can only input these commands at certain moments. If you try to do it otherwise, nothing happens. And if your timing is bad, or you've entered a command that doesn't match one of the moves, then you fall down. You're going to fall down a lot. Roughly speaking, the timing for entering a trick is when the skater's legs move together. If it's a move where she jumps up into the air, then you have to hit the A button right before you land, otherwise you fall. That's the gist of this one, and the only way you're going to get a positive score is if you practice this event a lot. And why would you? The final event is the luge. You've got a big map of the course that's taking up most of the screen, but what you're really doing is watching your sled in the upper right. Hit down to apply a little bit of brake, and hit left and right to steer around corners. If you go too high on the curve, then you fall and your run is over. And that's everything there is in Winter Games. Like I mentioned, there were 8 events in the computer versions, so this really feels sparse. And as someone who played those computer versions, they really picked a bad set of events here. The slalom and the biathlon would be more interesting than the judged events. And the ski jump is kind of simple, but it was still more fun than speed skating. Winter Games is the only one of Epyx's game series that we're going to see. The other ones just didn't get Japanese releases. That is something that is definitely for the best. Obviously, Winter Games on the Famicom Disk System is a complete disaster. It's one step shy of unplayable. And if for some reason you did want to play Winter Games, this is the worst version to get. Just stay far away from this one.